Did you know that over 27% of Americans over 60 are now living alone? That's more than 15 million people. And while many thrive in their independence, others face a silent struggle that few talk about openly. I recently met Martha, an 83-year-old who lived by herself for nearly 2 decades after her husband passed away. The first few years were the hardest, she told me. But then she discovered something remarkable. It wasn't her circumstances that determined her happiness, but her daily habits. I was either going to let loneliness consume me, she said, or I was going to create a life worth living, even on my own. Today, we're going to talk about something crucial that affects millions of older adults: aging alone. Whether you're living solo by choice or circumstance, the habits you develop can make all the difference between years of isolation and sadness, or a fulfilling, connected life filled with purpose. The truth is, living alone as you age presents unique challenges. Your social circle naturally shrinks. Health issues can make getting out harder, and without someone sharing your space, it's easy to fall into routines that harm rather than help your well-being. But here's the good news. With the right daily habits, you can not only survive but truly thrive while aging independently. By the end of this video, you'll discover 7 powerful habits that can transform your experience of aging alone. These aren't complicated lifestyle overhauls. They're simple, practical routines that anyone can incorporate, regardless of health status or financial situation. And the impact they can have on your quality of life is nothing short of remarkable. Stay with me until the very end, because the last habit we'll discuss is often the most overlooked, yet it might be the most powerful one of all. It's a simple practice that has helped countless seniors move from feelings of isolation to a deep sense of connection and purpose. If you're finding this information valuable so far, please take a moment to like this video and comment "Thriving" below. Your engagement helps others find this content, and I'd love to hear from you as we go along. Don't miss the final insight. It's one that most people overlook, yet it holds incredible power in predicting what lies ahead. These markers could completely reshape how you see your future and add valuable years to your life. If this has sparked your interest, show your support by hitting the like button, subscribing to our channel, and sharing this video with those you care about. Together, let's make informed choices for a healthier, longer life. Now, let's dive into the 7 habits that can transform aging alone from a lonely experience into a journey of growth, connection, and genuine happiness. Habit 1: Morning mindfulness. How you start sets the tone. The first habit that makes all the difference when aging alone is how you begin each day. When you live by yourself, it's easy to wake up and immediately feel the emptiness of the house around you. The silence can be deafening, and if you're not careful, negative thoughts can quickly take over. Take James, for example. At 75, he found himself living alone after his wife of 48 years passed away. For months, he'd wake up, stare at the ceiling, and immediately feel a wave of sadness wash over him. His days would start with grief and often continue that way until bedtime. "I was letting my first thoughts of the day dictate everything that followed," he told me, "and those thoughts were almost always focused on what I'd lost, not what I still had." Everything changed when James adopted a simple morning mindfulness practice. Instead of reaching for his phone or immediately getting out of bed, he began taking 5 minutes each morning to set his intentions for the day. He'd think of 3 things he was grateful for, no matter how small. Sometimes it was as simple as the birds singing outside his window, a comfortable bed, or the coffee he was about to enjoy. This small shift had profound effects. By consciously directing his mind toward gratitude first thing in the morning, he created a foundation of positivity that carried through the rest of his day. His brain began looking for things to appreciate rather than reasons to be sad. Here's how you can develop this habit. Keep a gratitude journal by your bedside and write down 3 things you're thankful for before your feet hit the floor. They don't need to be profound. Simple pleasures count just as much. Create a morning affirmation that acknowledges your strength. Something like, "I am capable of creating joy in my life today, regardless of my circumstances." Avoid technology for the first 30 minutes after waking. News headlines and social media can wait until you've established a positive mindset. Set one small goal for the day that gives you purpose, whether it's calling a friend, taking a walk, or working on a hobby you enjoy. The key is consistency, even on days when you don't feel like it. Especially on days when you don't feel like it, maintaining this morning mindfulness practice creates neural pathways that make positivity your default setting rather than loneliness. Remember, how you start each day often determines how you'll experience the remaining hours. When you live alone, this becomes even more crucial because you're the one setting the emotional tone of your environment. Choose to begin with intention rather than letting your thoughts drift toward isolation. Habit 2: Scheduled social connection, preventing isolation before it starts. The second habit that makes an enormous difference when aging alone is maintaining scheduled social connections. When you live with others, social interaction happens naturally. Conversations over breakfast, sharing observations about a TV show, or simply acknowledging each other's presence. When you live alone, however, you can go days without meaningful human contact unless you deliberately create opportunities for connection. Consider Eleanor, a 79-year-old retired teacher who lives alone in a small apartment. After retiring, she noticed her social circle shrinking as colleagues moved away and friends became less mobile. She found herself going 3 or 4 days without speaking to another person. At first, I didn't think it was affecting me, she explained, but I started feeling foggy mentally. Simple decisions became difficult. I even noticed my physical health declining, my blood pressure went up, and I was catching every cold that came around. Eleanor's doctor explained something crucial. Social isolation isn't just emotionally difficult, it's physically dangerous. Research shows that chronic loneliness increases inflammation, weakens immune function, and raises the risk of heart disease and stroke. In fact, some studies suggest that social isolation can be as damaging to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Eleanor realized she needed to be proactive about creating social connections. She developed a simple system she calls her connection calendar, a schedule ensuring she never goes more than a day without meaningful human interaction. Here's how you can implement this habit. Create a weekly social schedule with at least one meaningful interaction each day. This doesn't always mean in-person visits, though those are valuable. Phone calls, video chats, or even a meaningful conversation with a store clerk or neighbor counts. Join a regular group activity that meets on the same day each week, whether it's a book club, exercise class, faith-based organization, or volunteer opportunity. The regularity creates structure and anticipation. Use technology to your advantage. Services like FaceTime, Zoom, or even Facebook groups can help maintain connections even when you can't leave home. Schedule standing dates with friends or family members, like Sunday afternoon calls with your children or Tuesday coffee with a neighbor, that happen regardless of how you're feeling that day. Consider intergenerational connections. Many communities have programs connecting seniors with students or young families, which can bring fresh energy and perspectives into your life. The key to this habit is scheduling these interactions in advance and treating them as non-negotiable appointments. When you're feeling good, it might seem unnecessary. When you're feeling low, you might be tempted to cancel. But maintaining these connections consistently helps prevent the downward spiral that isolation can trigger. Eleanor now makes sure she has at least one meaningful conversation every day. Sometimes it's just a 15-minute phone call with my niece, she says. Other days it's my water aerobics class or volunteering at the library, but I never go to bed without having connected with another human being in some way. If you're finding these insights helpful, please take a moment to give this video a thumbs up and comment "connected" below. I'd love to know who you're staying connected with as you age. Habit 3. Physical movement. The mind-body connection in aging. The third habit that transforms the experience of aging alone is daily physical movement. When you live with others, you naturally move more, getting up to help someone, walking from room to room for conversations, or going out together for activities. When you live alone, it's surprisingly easy to become sedentary without even realizing it. Consider Robert, a 68-year-old who lives by himself in a suburban home. After retiring, he found himself spending more and more time in his recliner watching television. Without the structure of work or family responsibilities, days would pass with minimal movement. He didn't realize how little he was moving until he noticed he was getting winded just bringing in groceries from the car. I wasn't exercising, but I didn't think I was inactive either, Robert explained. I was busy with projects around the house, reading, keeping up with the news. But when I actually counted my steps one day, I was shocked to see I was taking fewer than 1,000 steps. That's barely moving at all. This pattern is common among older adults living alone. Without external motivations to move, physical activity can gradually decrease until the body begins to decondition. Muscles weaken, balance suffers, and energy levels drop, creating a vicious cycle where moving feels harder, so you move less, which makes moving even more difficult. What Robert discovered is something researchers have been confirming for years. Physical movement isn't just good for your body, it's essential for your emotional well-being, especially when you live alone. Exercise releases endorphins that combat depression and anxiety. It improves sleep quality, boosts cognitive function, and provides a sense of accomplishment that can be particularly valuable when you don't have others around to recognize your achievements. Robert started small, with a simple commitment to take 3 10-minute walks each day, morning, afternoon, and early evening. These brief brief walks broke up his day and gave him something to look forward to. He also began doing simple strength exercises while watching his favorite TV shows. Here's how you can establish this crucial habit. Start where you are, not where you think you should be. If you've been inactive, even 5 minutes of gentle movement is a victory. Create movement triggers in your home. For example, every time the phone rings, stand up to answer it. During TV commercials, march in place or do gentle stretches. Find forms of movement that you genuinely enjoy. Dancing to favorite music, gardening, swimming, or gentle yoga all count as exercise. Consider the social benefits of movement. Walking groups, exercise classes, or sports like pickleball can provide both physical activity and social connection. Track your progress in a visible way. A simple calendar where you mark off days you've moved for at least 20 minutes can provide motivation and accountability. The key is consistency over intensity. Moving moderately every day is far more beneficial than an intense workout once a week. This is especially true as you age. Gentle, regular movement helps maintain joint health, muscle mass, and cardiovascular function without excessive strain. For Robert, what started as 3 short daily walks gradually expanded to include a twice-weekly strength training class at his local senior center. Not only am I physically stronger, he says, but I've met a whole group of people who check in if I miss a class. That accountability keeps me going on days when I might otherwise talk myself out of it. Remember, when you live alone, physical movement isn't just about health. It's about maintaining your independence. The stronger and more mobile you remain, the longer you can continue living on your own terms. If you're committed to making movement a regular part of your day, comment "moving" below. I'd love to hear what kinds of physical activity you enjoy most. Habit 4. Purpose through contribution. Finding meaning beyond yourself. The 4th habit that makes a profound difference when aging alone is finding ways to contribute to others. When you live with family, your sense of purpose often comes built in. You're needed, your contributions matter, and others depend on you in various ways. When you live alone, you must be more intentional about creating that sense of purpose. Meet Sophia, a 77-year-old widow who spent the first year after her husband's death feeling increasingly isolated and unnecessary. My children were grown with their own busy lives. My career was over. My husband no longer needed my care. I kept asking myself, what's the point now? Who really needs me anymore? This question, who needs me, is one that many older adults living alone struggle with. Without obvious answers, it's easy to slip into feeling that your presence in the world doesn't matter much anymore. This belief can lead to depression, accelerated cognitive decline, and even earlier mortality. Everything changed for Sophia when she reluctantly agreed to volunteer at a local elementary school's reading program. She was assigned to work with struggling readers for just 2 hours each week. I almost canceled the first day, she admits. I kept thinking they probably had enough volunteers and one less wouldn't matter. But she went, and that decision transformed her experience of aging. The first time a child's face lit up because they successfully read a difficult word with my help, something shifted in me. I realized I still had something valuable to offer. The research backs up Sophia's experience. Studies consistently show that seniors who volunteer or otherwise contribute to others experience less depression, better physical health, and even lower mortality rates than those who don't. This helper's high comes from neurochemical changes in the brain, including releases of dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, the body's natural mood elevators. Here's how you can cultivate this habit of contribution. Start small and specific. Don't try to save the world. Find one concrete way your skills or presence can help others, even for just an hour a week. Consider what you enjoyed in your working years or as a parent-spouse. Did you love organizing things, caring for others, fixing problems, teaching skills, or creating beauty? These same strengths can be channeled into volunteer work. Look for intergenerational opportunities. Sharing your wisdom and experience with younger generations can be particularly fulfilling and helps combat age segregation. Don't overlook virtual opportunities. If mobility is a challenge, consider online volunteer roles like crisis text line counseling, virtual tutoring, or participating in research studies. Remember that contribution doesn't have to be formal. Checking on neighbors, writing encouraging notes to friends going through difficult times, or even caring well for a pet can provide a sense of being needed. For Sophia, what began as 2 hours of weekly volunteering expanded into a rich network of connection. The school staff came to rely on her consistency. The children looked forward to their sessions with Grandma Sophia. She formed friendships with other volunteers, and most importantly, she regained her sense of purpose. Now I have a reason to get up and get dressed on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, she says. People are expecting me, and what I do makes a difference in a child's life. That knowledge carries me through the rest of my week. When you live alone, this habit of contribution becomes even more essential. It pulls your focus outward instead of inward, and embeds you in a community of mutual need and support. You're no longer just an individual living in isolation, but part of a larger fabric of giving and receiving. If this resonates with you, I'd love to hear how you're contributing to others. Comment "purpose" below and share one way you're making a difference, no matter how small it might seem. Habit 5. Learning and growth, keeping your mind engaged and forward-looking. The fifth habit that transforms the experience of aging alone is committing to ongoing learning and growth. When living with others, intellectual stimulation often happens naturally through conversations, debates, and shared activities. When living alone, you must be more intentional about challenging your mind and expanding your horizons. Consider Thomas, a 72-year-old retired accountant who has lived alone since his divorce nearly a decade ago. For the first few years of retirement, he maintained the same routines and interests he'd always had. He read the same types of books, watched familiar TV shows, and stuck to activities he knew well. I was comfortable, he explains, but I started noticing my world getting smaller. Conversations became repetitive. I had fewer new experiences to share with friends, and honestly, I was boring myself. This stagnation is common among older adults living alone. Without the stimulus of others introducing new ideas and interests, it's easy to settle into predictable patterns. Over time, this intellectual comfort zone can contribute to cognitive decline, as the brain thrives on novelty and challenge. Everything changed when Thomas reluctantly signed up for a digital photography class at his local community center. I'd never been artistic, he says, laughing. I signed up mainly because my doctor was always telling me to try new things for brain health. I didn't expect to love it, but love it he did. Learning to see the world through a camera lens opened up new perspectives. Mastering the technical aspects of photography challenged his brain in unfamiliar ways, and the learning process itself, the frustrations, the breakthroughs, the gradual improvement, rekindled something he hadn't felt in years: the satisfaction of growth. Research strongly supports Thomas's experience. Studies show that older adults who continue learning new skills show improved memory function, greater psychological well-being, and enhanced confidence. The brain responds to challenges by forming new neural connections, a process that can continue well into advanced age. Here's how you can establish this habit of continued learning. Choose learning experiences that are genuinely interesting to you, not just what you think you should learn. Authentic curiosity is the best motivator. Step outside your comfort zone regularly. If you've always been analytical, try something creative. If you've always been artistic, try something technical. Consider both structured and unstructured learning. Formal classes offer accountability and social connection, while self-directed learning offers flexibility. Make learning tangible when possible. Creating something physical, like artwork, woodworking, or cooking, or achieving measurable milestones, like reading books in a new genre or learning phrases in a new language, provides concrete evidence of your growth. Share what you're learning with others. Teaching or discussing new knowledge helps solidify it in your own mind and gives you fresh conversation topics when socializing. For Thomas, photography became more than just a hobby. It gave him a new identity, not just as a retired accountant, but as a developing artist. It provided reasons to explore new locations for photo opportunities. It connected him with a community of fellow photographers who shared tips and feedback. Now, when I go to family gatherings, he says, I have new stories to tell. My grandkids actually think I'm kind of cool for learning this digital skill, and instead of dwelling on the past, I'm excited about what I might create tomorrow. When you live alone, this forward orientation is particularly valuable. Learning keeps you engaged with the future rather than solely reflecting on the past. It gives you projects to look forward to and a sense of becoming rather than just being or having been. If you're committed to continuing to learn and grow, comment "growing" below. I'd love to hear what new skills or knowledge you're currently exploring. Habit 6. Environmental optimization, creating a space that nurtures you. The sixth habit that makes a profound difference when aging alone is optimizing your living environment to support your well-being. When you share your home with others, the space naturally reflects multiple people's needs and activities. When you live alone, you have the opportunity and responsibility to create a space that truly nurtures your physical and emotional health. Meet Diane, a 70-year-old who had lived in the same 4-bedroom house for decades. After her husband passed away and her children moved across the country, she found herself rattling around in a space space that was filled with memories but increasingly impractical for her needs. I was spending all my energy maintaining a house that was too big, she explains. Cleaning rooms I never used, heating and cooling space I didn't need, worrying about stairs that were getting harder to navigate. And ironically, even though the house was large, it wasn't actually designed for my current life. Diane's situation is common. Many older adults living alone remain in environments that worked for an earlier life stage, but may now be creating unnecessary challenges or even safety risks. The emotional attachment to a long-time home is understandable, but it can sometimes prevent practical assessments of whether the space is truly supporting your current well-being. After much thought, Diane decided to downsize to a smaller, one-level apartment. The process was emotionally challenging but ultimately liberating. I kept the things that truly mattered to me, she says, but I also gave myself permission to create a new space that works for the life I'm living now, not the life I used to have. In her new home, Diane was intentional about every aspect of the environment. She arranged furniture to maximize natural light. She created dedicated spaces for her favorite activities. She eliminated trip hazards and installed better lighting. And she surrounded herself with meaningful objects rather than just familiar ones. Research supports the profound impact our environments have on our mental and physical health. Studies show that thoughtfully designed living spaces can reduce stress, improve sleep, encourage physical activity, and even strengthen cognitive function, all particularly important factors when aging alone. Here's how you can optimize your environment. Evaluate your space for safety first. Good lighting, removal of trip hazards, accessible bathrooms, and ergonomic furniture aren't just practical, they're essential for maintaining independence. Create activity zones that encourage your priority habits. A comfortable reading corner with good lighting, an easily accessible exercise area, or a well-organized hobby space can make daily wellness activities more inviting. Bring nature indoors. Research shows that houseplants, natural materials, and views of greenery can reduce stress and improve mood, especially important when you spend significant time at home. Consider sensory elements, pleasant scents, favorite music easily accessible through speakers, varied textures and furnishings, and colors that evoke positive emotions can all subconsciously affect your well-being. Make technology work for you. Smart home devices can provide both practical assistance and additional security when living alone, from medication reminders to video doorbells that let you see visitors before opening the door. Be honest about whether your current home truly serves your needs. Sometimes the most loving choice is to release an environment that no longer supports your health and independence. For Diane, optimizing her living space transformed her daily experience. In my old house, I was a caretaker of memories, she reflects. In my new place, I'm a creator of my present life. My energy goes into living, not just maintaining. When you live alone, your environment plays an even more significant role in your well-being than you might realize. Without others around to provide stimulation, support, or assistance, your space needs to be thoughtfully designed to nurture your specific needs and promote the habits that keep you thriving. If you've made changes to your living environment to better support your well-being as you age, I'd love to hear about them. Comment environment below and share one way you've optimized your space. Habit 7. Spiritual practice, finding meaning beyond circumstance. The seventh and perhaps most profound habit that transforms the experience of aging alone is developing some form of spiritual practice. This doesn't necessarily mean traditional religion, though it can. Rather, it's about cultivating a connection to something larger than yourself that provides meaning, perspective, and inner resources when external supports are limited. Meet Harold, an 81-year-old widower who lives alone in a small apartment. For most of his life, Harold wasn't particularly spiritual or religious. He focused on his career, family, and practical matters. But after his wife died and he found himself living alone, he began experiencing what he calls existential loneliness, not just missing specific people, but feeling adrift in a universe that suddenly seemed empty and random. I had plenty to do, Harold explains. I had some friends, my health was decent, I had hobbies, but I kept asking myself, what's the point of all this? Why am I still here? Without someone to share my life with, everything started feeling meaningless. This search for meaning becomes particularly acute when aging alone. Without daily witnesses to your life, without the immediate purpose that comes from being needed by others, existential questions naturally arise. Who am I now? What matters in the time I have left? What has my life meant? These aren't abstract philosophical issues, but deeply practical concerns that affect motivation, resilience, and even the will to continue. For Harold, the turning point came through an unexpected source, a meditation class offered at his local library. I went because I'd read it might help with my sleep problems, he says with a smile. I had no idea it would help me find a new way of understanding my place in the world. Through regular meditation practice, Harold developed what he describes as a direct experience of being connected to something larger than myself. This sense of connection didn't erase his grief or loneliness, but it changed his relationship to these feelings. They became part of his human experience rather than the defining feature of his existence. Research consistently shows that older adults with some form of spiritual practice tend to have better mental health outcomes, greater resilience in the face of loss, and even better physical health indicators. These benefits appear across different faith traditions and secular spiritual practices alike. Here's how you can develop this vital habit. Explore different spiritual practices with an open mind. Meditation, prayer, time in nature, religious services, spiritual reading, yoga, or contemplative arts might all be pathways to meaningful connection. Start with small, consistent practices rather than dramatic changes. Even 5 minutes of daily meditation or gratitude practice can begin shifting your perspective. Consider both solitary and community-based spiritual activities. When living alone, finding a spiritual community can provide both social connection and shared purpose. Look for spiritual practices that address your specific challenges of aging alone. Some traditions offer particular wisdom on finding meaning in solitude, dealing with loss, or embracing life's transitions. Remember that spiritual growth often happens through questions rather than answers. Creating space to explore life's deeper meanings can be valuable even when definitive conclusions remain elusive. For Harold, daily meditation evolved into a richer spiritual life that included both solitary practices and community involvement. He joined a weekly meditation group, began volunteering at a hospice, and developed a daily ritual of writing reflections on moments of beauty or connection he experienced. I still live alone, he says, but I no longer feel alone in the same way. There's a spaciousness to my life now, room for joy and sorrow, connection and solitude. I've come to see that my worth isn't dependent on being needed by specific people. There's an inherent value to my existence that nothing can take away. When you live alone as you age, this spiritual dimension becomes not a luxury but a necessity. It provides an internal resource that remains available regardless of physical limitations, geographical location, or social circumstances. It offers perspective that can transform the experience of aging from one of progressive loss to one of continued growth and deepening wisdom. If you've found spiritual practices that help you navigate aging, especially aging alone, I'd love to hear about your experience. Comment spiritual below and share what practices have been most meaningful to you. As we bring our discussion to a close, let's reflect on these 7 transformative habits for aging alone: morning mindfulness, scheduled social connection, daily physical movement, purposeful contribution, continued learning, environmental optimization, and spiritual practice. While each habit is powerful on its own, the real magic happens when they begin to reinforce each other. Think about it this way. Morning mindfulness helps you start the day with a positive outlook, making you more likely to follow through on scheduled social connections. Those social interactions provide motivation for physical movement. Staying physically active gives you energy for learning and contributing. Your contributions connect you with community, expanding your learning opportunities. A thoughtfully optimized environment makes all these habits easier to maintain. And underlying everything, spiritual practice provides the meaning and purpose that sustains your commitment to these life-enhancing routines. Together, these habits create an upward spiral of well-being, rather than the downward spiral that isolation can trigger. They address the whole person, mind, body, spirit, and social connections, providing a comprehensive approach to thriving while aging independently. I want to share one final story. Maria, now 88, has lived alone for almost 30 years since her husband passed away. When asked the secret to her vibrant, engaged life, she laughs and says, "There's no secret, just daily choices that add up over time." Maria starts each morning with a gratitude practice and gentle stretching. She has non-negotiable social connections scheduled throughout her week. She walks daily and tends a small container garden on her patio. She volunteers teaching English to immigrants, takes a Spanish class to keep her mind sharp, and has created a home environment that reflects her current passions rather than just her past. And she maintains a rich spiritual life through both meditation and her faith community. At my age, living alone could easily become lonely and limiting, she acknowledges, but these habits have created a life that still feels expansive. Yes, I've experienced losses. Yes, there are things I can no longer do, but each day still contains possibilities for joy, connection, and meaning. This is what I wish for each of you watching: not a perfect life without challenges, but a rich, textured experience of aging that embraces both the difficulties and the opportunities of this stage. Whether you're currently living alone or preparing for that possibility, these 7 habits offer a pathway to not just just surviving, but genuinely thriving in your later years. Remember, it's never too late to begin. You don't need to implement all 7 habits at once. Start with the one that resonates most strongly with you, practice it consistently, and watch how it begins to transform your experience. Then gradually add others, creating your own personalized approach to aging with vibrancy and purpose. I believe in your capacity to create a meaningful life at any age, in any circumstances. The habits we've discussed today aren't just theoretical concepts, they're practical tools that have helped countless older adults transform their experience of aging alone, from one of isolation to one of possibility. Thank you for joining me today. If you found value in this discussion, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone who might benefit, and subscribe to our channel for more content on thriving in your later years. I'd love to hear which of these habits you're going to focus on first. Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, remember that aging alone doesn't have to mean aging lonely. With intentional habits and a community of support, your later years can be some of your most meaningful and fulfilling yet.